Hello and welcome to Connect. I'm your host, Randy Shabilo. Today's show will have Bill Thurmeier talking about pipe organs, as well as Todd McPherson talking about Parkinson's disease. As always, we'd like to connect with you.
Tweet us at connect_YXZ. Follow us on Facebook to watch new and past interviews, or email connectyxz@gmail.com with any future guest or topic suggestions.
The world of pipe organs is most intriguing, especially when you're in buildings where these magnificent structures are part and parcel of listening to sounds that you can only hear from someone who looks after them. Bill Thurmeier from the Golden Eagle Organ Company is with us today. Very select group of individuals that can fine-tune and construct some of these organs, and I've invited Bill to come and talk to us today about his work and how he got involved with that. So, Bill, thank you for making some time.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with pipe organs to begin with.
Well, I came from a musical family. My mother was a singing teacher and sang in choirs and directed choirs. So music was a natural thing, and I started piano at the age of 7. Just about the time when I had an experience, in the summertime, a group of the kids from the block were getting together at our house and trying to decide what we were going to do. And one of the girls in the group had been watching a football game, I guess, with her dad, and she saw a marching band. And she was really impressed with this marching band and the sounds they made and marching around the field. And so she had the great idea that we could create a marching band too. And I thought it was a really silly idea because I wanted to play something that today would be considered politically incorrect. I wanted to play cowboys and Indians. That's much more exciting, at least it was to me. And unfortunately, I was outvoted. So we all went home and got together our materials to create our instruments with pots and pans and spoons and toilet paper tubes and whatever we could find, string, rubber bands. And we got back together and we had all our instruments and we went marching down the street making all this music. And while we were marching down the street, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could create an instrument that one person could play like a piano, but you could make all these sounds of an orchestra, just one player. And so when we finished marching down the street, I went back to the house and got together some wire and string and stuff that my dad had in the basement, and I was going to construct this instrument. I was a little disappointed, though, because it didn't work quite as I had envisioned. But later on in life, after studying piano, and then my parents moved us to Tucson, Arizona when I was 15. When I was in grade 12, my brother suggested I needed to find an elective, and my brother suggested taking a music class from this lady who was teaching music appreciation. He said, she's a great teacher, it's very interesting. She was studying organ at the university, and so I did. I took the class, and near the end of the class, she was doing her master's performance in organ for her master's degree and invited us all to her performance, which was at a large cathedral in Tucson, a Neo-Spanish cathedral. And they had a 3-manual organ that David McDowell had built with French reeds and so on. And so I went to her concert, and for the first time, I heard the organ in a way that I had never heard in church. I was never interested in the organ, even though I would go up in the choir loft with my mom when she was singing in the choir, and I heard organ every Sunday morning. It was so dull and boring to me what I heard in church, so I wasn't interested. But when I heard her perform this wonderful music on this fantastic instrument in the big cathedral, I said, that's what I want to do. And really, that was what I had envisioned creating when I was 5 or 6 years old. And so I started studying with her. I studied with her for 1 year, and I also studied electronics technology at an institute in Tucson because I had discovered I had a talent for that. But at the end of this year, my parents had said they'd pay for our first year of university, but then after that we had to provide for ourselves. And so I needed a job, and I mentioned it to her. And she said, well, you might be lucky because the fellow who built this organ that I had my lessons on, it was a or he didn't build it, he installed it. It was a 3-manual Reuter organ. is looking for an apprentice. He just had one quit. So here's his phone number. You go and see him. He's a really interesting guy. So I phoned him up, and Dave invited me to his house that evening, and we sat in the living room and we talked a little bit about organs. I also played flute. I had studied flute when I was a little younger. And he was impressed with my musical background and the fact that I was studying electronics. And so he said to me, well, here, I'm going to show you the shop. So we went in, he showed me the shop, and he said, can you come tomorrow after your classes are over? And so I was so happy I got a job with him, and he was a great builder. He built about 80 organs in southern Arizona and was servicing others. And so I learned the trade from David McDowell, and in many ways he became like a second father to me. So when I came back to Saskatchewan then, I also studied some electrical engineering. I was able to do electronics and pipe organ work and combine the two.
That is remarkable up to that point. So you're about 20 years old or so when you moved back to Saskatchewan? Or?
Almost 25.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you settled back here, is there a certificate that you'd have, or would this just be under the hand of someone who's taken you on as an apprentice and just kind of spread your wings and fly type of thing, or how does that work?
At that time, there was no place you could go to really get any certification. So you would study with somebody, you'd work with somebody and learn the trade as you go. Fortunately for me, Dave was a great teacher. Now there is an institute in Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, that actually has a program to teach pipe organ building as well as organ performance and so on. But at that time there wasn't. In Germany, for many, many years, pipe organ building has been considered a trade, just like electrician or plumber. And you go to an institute, and then you also do an apprenticeship, as well as theoretical classes.
So would someone contact you from another country and want you to do some work for them offshore from here?
I have been contacted by a fellow in China. They had built a new Catholic church in China, a very large church. It looks like a European cathedral. And they were looking for a pipe organ for their church. And so I sent him some information about instruments I knew that were available. There are lots of organs being built in China, some very large instruments for concert halls and as well for churches. It's one of the fastest growing area for pipe organ building. And if you go to the website of the largest North American organ builder, that's Casavant Frères in Saint-Hyacinthe in Quebec, their website is in French, English, and Chinese. And they also are building, there are lots of organs going as well into Japan and into Korea, South Korea. In fact, interestingly enough, many people don't know this, but Yamaha, that builds many pianos and also motorcycles and other things, we're actually doing pipe organ work back in the early part of the last century, and built reed organs, pump organs, up until about 1980 or so.
So what type of a network would you have across Western Canada of people with your skill set that you can talk to, phone, and ask questions about?
Well, in Western Canada, there aren't that many of us. I know pretty much all of them. But there is an American Institute of Organ Builders, which is based in the United States, but has members in Canada as well, which I belong to. And so they have courses that are offered, usually 2 each year, on specific topics. And the courses they're hands-on courses, and they're taught by some of the foremost organ builders in North America. One year I attended the convention. It was in Montreal, and it was combined with the International Society of Organ Builders. So we had organ builders from all over Europe, and as well some of them gave presentations. I saw a presentation by a German fellow who works in Spain and is restoring the wonderful instruments in Spain built in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s.
That's remarkable. When we look at Saskatoon as an example, how many pipe organs would we have in the city currently?
In Saskatoon, I think it's around 15 or 16.
And are they technically similar? Are they the same vintage? Do are they easy to work on, some harder than others? Or?
There's a tremendous variety of ways of building pipe organs, and it's changed over the centuries. Until the latter part of the 1800s, they were all mechanical. Then with the invention of electrical devices, they started to use more electrical things, and then also at the same time we developed systems of doing things with pneumatics. Instead of mechanical action, we use pneumatics with air pressure to move valves. That kind of fell out of disuse as the electrical systems developed, but there are many different kinds of electrical systems that have been developed over the last 100 years, which are combinations of pneumatics, electricity, electromagnets, and various things. Now we have digital control systems that allow pipe organs to interface with keyboards, with computers, with digital sound generators, and all kinds of, and even be connected on the internet, so that a technician can connect up with the control system in the pipe organ from another city and do diagnostics and so on.
Wow. Can I ask you what you're working on at present, or are there secrets, or what type of projects do you have on the go now?
Well, I have an organ in Regina that just, the church, it's an Anglican church, they just approved doing some work. We'll be probably doing that a little bit in May and then the rest later in the summer. And as well, we have a wonderful instrument, a very interesting instrument in storage right now here in Saskatoon. It's been brought in from Oregon, and it's a theater organ built by the Wurlitzer Organ Company. And theater organs were very popular at the beginning of the last century because of the silent movies. Silent movies, of course, had no sound, and so you needed something that would give the sound, the music, and other sound effects needed for the movie. And at first they used orchestras, but then they developed the idea of using an organ and started to add to these organs the various sound effects like train whistles, car horns, horses' hoofs, and chimes, cymbals, bass drum, snare drum, other percussive instruments. And so the theater organ developed and became very popular, and they would perform to full houses continuously for about 30 years. And so unfortunately the movies got soundtracks, and so the theater organs were not that much needed anymore and sort of declined in popularity. But we have obtained a theater organ from Wurlitzer, and the plan is to restore this organ and install it in the Roxy Theatre, and it would be used for silent movies and for other performances. The plan is to bring in internationally well-known theater organists. And today we don't do just music for movies, but we do movie music on theater organs and contemporary movies. I was in Florida at a convention of the American Theater Organ Society, and I saw some really wonderful performances and some fantastic players. It's really quite an experience.
I think we're just on our way to having a full appreciation of the work you do every time we listen. I know I certainly have, and I want to thank you for the work you do behind the scenes, and thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you very much, Randy.
Good.
My pleasure.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.